Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. It's Tuesday, time to talk about some new releases coming out this Friday, March 29th. There's about 400 albums coming out this week. I got 10 on my list for today. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure you check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist I put together every week, and the Patreon page. Make sure you go check all that out. Like always, if you enjoy the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. Like I said in the intro, there's about 400 albums coming out this week, which is kind of typical for this time of year. I guess, normally as we get closer to Record Store Day, there tends to be fewer and fewer releases. Everyone kind of holds back for either the weekend before or the weekend after Record Store Day. But I'm only going to talk about 10 on the show today, though, so if there's something I don't talk about, make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing. And like always, if you're unable to find any of these in your local brick and mortar stores, I'll put links down below. They should all be available online. The one new release this week that I'm most excited for is this new album from Sum 41. This is Heaven and Hell. It's their 8th and final studio album. It's a 2 LP release. It's going to run you about $35 online. There's multiple variants of this. I know there's a couple of different ones on their website. I ordered one of the exclusive copies from their website. There's also an indie exclusive that's going to be out there. I think there's also a couple of retail exclusives. I'm not 100% sure. But like I said, multiple copies of this are going to be around. So this is a really interesting album because it's kind of cool how they're doing this release. So, Sum 41, the earlier part of their career was very much like this emo kind of pop punk band, and then they transitioned in the later half of their career to this heavier, almost kind of like heavy metal kind of style, and that's kind of how they laid out Heaven and Hell. The first half, the Heaven side, is just like their earlier career, very much like straightforward pop punk stuff. And then Hell, which is the last disc, or side C and D, is all the harder, heavy rock stuff. So it's kind of cool. Like I said, it's gonna be an interesting release. I'm not a big fan of the stuff later in the career, the heavier stuff. I'm much more of a fan of the first couple of albums, which was, like I said, very much straightforward pop punk stuff. It's a cool release. Like I said, I've already got it on pre-order. I can't wait for this one to get released. I will say that the interesting thing about this, I don't know why they're doing this or why they did this, but this album was released 2 weeks earlier in both Belgium and the Netherlands. I'm not really sure what the story is behind that, but so there are copies of this that have been floating out there for a couple weeks now. So you got that coming out this week, and then you also got the new album from Sheryl Crow, Evolution, coming out. It's her 12th studio album. So this says colored vinyl on all the websites. My local record stores have it also listed as colored vinyl, but they don't have a color list on there. If you go on Amazon, it's a gold color that they've got on Amazon. So I'm not sure if the Amazon copy or color is going to be the same as what's available in store. But this is going to run you about $24. So she released Threads in 2018, which is supposed to be her last album. And then she started like working on some new demos and started putting some stuff together. And it's kind of snowballed into this whole new album. So, I'm not the biggest Sheryl Crow fan. I do love her first couple of albums. But I think after the early part of the 2000s, definitely the last few albums, probably the last 4 albums maybe I haven't listened to, but I'll definitely stream this one and check it out this week. I guess I should add that she's released 4 singles off of the new album. Alarm Clock was the first single off of it. I really like the track. I think it's probably her best track in 20 years. I haven't listened to the other 3 tracks. It's I got some high expectations, I think, for this album. I think it's gonna be a really good one. Definitely interested to check it out this week. So I've been a big Bob Marley fan for a long time. Ever since I was a teenager, I've loved his music. So this next one is definitely one I'm looking forward to grabbing this week. This is Trenchtown Rock. So this is a compilation of 17 tracks from across Bob Marley's career. It's going to be on yellow vinyl. It's going to run you about $30 online. But what's different this compared to other compilations from Bob is the other, like Legend and some of the other stuff that they've released over the years are all always like greatest hits compilations. This one, this album, it's not that kind of album. This is very much like a lot of deeper cuts from across Bob's career. And if you're just a casual Bob Marley fan, you probably haven't heard a lot of the songs on here. It's definitely one worth checking out. My question about this is, I don't know if this has been previously released. There's been other Trenchtown Rock albums over the years. I think there's been at least 2 or 3 of them that I know of off the top of my head. But the track listing on this is different than the track listing on those albums. So, like I said, I'm not sure if this has been previously released. If you look on the Obi strip that comes with this, it says featuring brand new album artwork. But I don't know. I'm assuming that the artwork itself is new because it looks like newer artwork than anything else that's been released before. So I think that's what we're talking about. Is just the artwork. But the way it's worded kind of makes me think that the album was previously released and that is now being released with new artwork. But I don't think it's necessarily that case. Like I said, regardless of what it is, I'm looking forward to grabbing a copy of it this week. It looks like it's going to be a really great release. And then the next one is the new album from Enrique Iglesias. This is Final Volume 2. It's his 12th and final studio album. It's going to run you about $24 online. So Enrique, I haven't listened to any Enrique's music since the 90s, to be completely honest. I was never a huge fan. But when he released Final Volume 1, which was I think 2021 when that came out, it's been like 7 years since he had released a new album. When he released Final Volume 1, he said it was going to be his last album. He was breaking it up into 2 releases. Final Volume 1 did not get really good reviews. So it's been a couple of years since that one came out. It's been 3 years now since Volume 1 came out. And from what I read about this new release, it sounds like it's much more experimental, very different than Volume 1. I don't know. I'll add to my list and stream it and to check it out this week. But I'm not a huge fan of his music, but I'll at least see what he's trying to do differently compared to that last album. So I'm generally not a big fan of tribute albums, because a lot of times you compare them to the older versions, and it's hard to compare it like that. But I think this next one is a good one because there are some good tracks on here. There are some kind of skippable tracks also, but there's enough good stuff on here to make me consider picking this up this week. Plus, I love the title of it. But this is Bathead Soup, a tribute to Ozzy. This came out back in 2000. It's got a bunch of metal artists from the 80s and 90s on there. But like I said, there's some really interesting pairings, though, between the musicians and the song. You got Snider doing Crazy Train, which I think he does a really good job with it. You've also got Vince Neil doing Paranoid, which the first couple of times I listened to it, I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of it, but I think it's kind of grown on me since then. And then I think the oddest pairing on this album is Lisa Loeb, which of course is known for her, singer-songwriter stuff in the later part of the 90s. Paired with Dweezil Zappa, they do a version of Goodbye to Romance, which is actually a really good version of it. It's probably my favorite song on this album. It's the release of this on Purple Marble vinyl. It's going to run you $28. Like I said, it's not. It's probably not something I'll listen to a whole lot, but for $28, I'll probably grab a copy of it if I can find it in one of my local stores. And then the next one is All Time Low, MTV Unplugged. This is going to be on electric blue vinyl. This is cut at 45 RPM. This is released back in 2010. It's going to run you about $24 online. So this is just a 6-song MTV Unplugged performance that the band did. It's their typical like pop punk kind of style stuff, really kind of stripped down. They do a really good job with this. It's not one of my favorite MTV Unplugged performances, but this was unavailable on vinyl for forever. It was never released on vinyl, I think, until, what year did this get released? It was 2017 when this got released for Record Store Day. So what separates this from the Record Store Day release? The Record Store Day release goes for around $100 if you look it up online. But this, and I wish they would have reissued that RSD version because this one's a little different. The RSD version was the album, came along with the DVD of the performance. The one for $24 is coming out this week is just the performance. So I guess you can always go on YouTube and watch it. The performance is available out there. But, I wish they would have, like I said, kind of redone the way they did the RSD release. But, I don't know. It's definitely an album I need to go back through and stream it. It's been quite a few years since I've listened to it. But there's a couple of songs on there. Probably my favorite couple of songs from All Time Low are on here. So like I said, I'll try to revisit that one this week. The next album is one I think is really kind of flown under the radar this week. But this is a reissue of Cult by Bayside. This came out back in 2014. It was their 6th studio album. It's going to be on green vinyl. It's going to run you about $24 online. So this is a pop punk kind of emo band. Started back in, I think, 2001 was when the band got together. They've released, I think, 8 studio albums so far. They actually have a new album coming out in April. Cult is an album that's, I think it's kind of interesting because by the time the band got to Cult, which, like I said, was their 6th album, they had gotten a little more mature in their songwriting. It's a little more experimental than the stuff they did before it. It's probably one of my favorite albums by the band. And then the 2 albums they released after that, haven't been a huge fan of, but like I said, their new album comes out. I think it's April 5th. Their new album comes out. The singles they've released off of it, I think, is some of the best stuff that the band has done in a very long time. So it's an album that I'll probably grab the reissue this week, but I'm also really looking forward to that new release in April. So you got that coming out this week. Then you got the reissue of Transnational Speedway League by Clutch coming out this week. This is their debut album, come out back in 1993. It's going to be on translucent emerald green vinyl. This is their collector series that they're doing. And the reason I bring this up is because this thing's $57. I think my local record store has this, I think, for $62. So it's going to be pretty pricey release. It's a 1 LP release. There's really nothing special about it. It does have a numbered insert that comes with it that's signed. But this is the thing that drives me crazy is, like, Clutch is not the biggest band on earth. And I know that they're fans. They do have some diehard fans that love this album, that love their music. But I think it's a really bad precedent. I get that they're doing this like collector series. It's got new artwork. It comes in this really deluxe, thick sleeve. But this thing is $60. Like, even if it was 40, I think I could see it. Even though it is being, it's got that signed insert, so maybe $40, $45, but 60 plus tax and everything, you're talking $65 for this album, which, like I said, it is a good album. I think it's an album that, like I said, came out back in '93. It was probably like late '90s by the time I heard this album, but $60 for that album is just insane to me. And also, this album kind of follows in a trend that I've seen over the last couple of years, where the band puts something out like this. It is really expensive. They list it as limited, but don't really say what it's limited to. I guess I can understand the pricing if this is like limited to 500, limited to 750 copies, and something less than 1,000 copies. I can get charging a little bit more. It's a little nicer packaging. It's signed. It's more of a collector's piece than like a standard album or a standard reissue. But if they're going to list this thing as limited, and maybe I'm wrong, drop me a comment down below. Let me know if I'm wrong. If they have labeled how many copies or listed how many copies of this is getting pressed. But when I looked on their website, it just said limited. So it could be 1,000. It could be 5,000 copies that are doing all this. That's why I said it. I think it's kind of it's setting a bad precedent for bands to have releases like this. And then the last two on the list are two great soundtracks. The first one, maybe not the best soundtrack, but I love the packaging that they do for these releases. But the first one is Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. This, of course, is a soundtrack for the classic 1988 slasher film, which I've been a huge fan of Friday the 13th movies. It's probably my favorite of the slasher series. Ever since like the early 80s when I really fell in love with those movies when I was a kid. But this one's going to run you about $47 online. Waxwork, this is a Waxwork release. Waxwork does a bunch of great releases. A lot of these slasher soundtracks. If you go on their website, they've got a series. I think they've done a whole bunch of the Friday the 13th movies on there. The artwork on the album, on the sleeve looks cool. The pressing normally looks really cool. My question is with this one, is I don't know if this is a colored release. So this just was released on vinyl back in 2020. It was reissued in 2023. Both of those pressings, actually I think there's two pressings in 2020. So all three of those pressings were all on colored vinyl. This one doesn't list a color, so I don't know if this is just a black release or if it's going to be a reissue of that one from last year. Regardless, like I said, it's a really cool one to grab if you're a slasher fan, a Friday the 13th fan like me. So that's one I'm looking forward to. And then the last one is the soundtrack for Go. This is going to run you about $40 online. It's going to be on Blue Smoke vinyl, celebrating its 20th anniversary. This was a film back from 1999. I know a lot of people compared it to Pulp Fiction and said it was like a Pulp Fiction kind of rip-off movie, but this, I've always liked Go. I think Go is probably one of the more underrated movies of the later part of the 90s. But it's one of those examples where it's a good movie, but I think the soundtrack is even better. Some great songs on here. You got songs on here from No Doubt. By the way, it was the song that's on here from No Doubt. It was their first new single in a couple of years when the soundtrack came out. You got tracks on here from Fatboy Slim, Eagle Eye Cherry, Len. This is it's a very late 90s, early 2000s kind of vibe on the soundtrack, but it's a really good one. For $40, it's one I'll consider to grab this week. Well, that's all I got for today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing this week. Like I said, the only one I know for sure that I'm going to grab is that Sum 41 Heaven and Hell. That's the only one I've got on pre-order for sure. I'll stream a couple of those other new releases. Like I said, maybe if I can grab Bat Head Soup from one of my local stores, maybe I'll grab that one also. Like I said, I've got some question marks next to quite a few releases for this week, but let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.